Oh boy, we're back again with another One Piece video! Another video thrown into the content pile of videos discussing the themes, allegories, and parables surrounding our favorite Rubberman and his crazy whack crap blah. Another video to throw into the content pile of other videos discussing the themes, allegories, and parables surrounding everyone's favorite Rubberman. Well, guess what? I love One Piece, I have bills to pay, and the landlord is coming with the battering ram, so let's get political. Suppose you might have guessed from my video output that despite my attempt to find many fresh and original works to lean into and discuss, I sometimes lapse into the comfort zone of my favorite manga and anime series. The story of the Monkey D. Luffy and his band of wacky, bizarre, and overall goofy striped pirates have stood the test of time and have been thriving for quite a while. As of 2024, One Piece has been one of the most popular series to discuss and analyze for over 25 years. Especially if you live in Japan, and you can't even turn a corner without seeing One Piece merchandise across the street selling stuff like keychains, t-shirts, bath bombs, bowls, underwear, you name it, One Piece has probably made it into a marketable plushie. Yet, I'm not so interested in the revenue the series generates as I am in its world. Ichiro Oda has spent the better half of his life drafting, producing, and realizing the seas and islands of his high fantasy adventure. Especially when, in contrast to his other peers, who mostly focus on action, Oda hovers around being pragmatic and impractical when it comes to his story and character. Now, of course, I won't say I'm the first to come up with this much to say about the overarching themes of One Piece, but the amount that Oda can cram in and yet never feel overstuffed astounds me to no end. I'm not the one to glaze, but the times he does things like callback, setup, and payoff, hell, even the number of Chekhov's guns he implements that really should just be Chekhov's missiles, seems to blast every other manga out of the water. And I think it all comes back to the main subject of this video, the role the Pirate King means to One Piece's biggest events, and how we see systems of powers at a small or global scale. Why does Luffy want to be a king? Is he like Simba from The Lion King, where everything light touches will be his by birthright? Or is it an equivalent to some kid role-playing in his imagination? And even if either is true, how come Luffy seems to fight against a system that rewards corruption and employs dictatorships? Shadowy government conspiracies, coups d'etats, cultural genocides, and a boy with a straw hat who unknowingly fights against that. Buckle in, strap on your straw hats, we're going from the heights of Sky Island to the depths of Fisherman Island to figure out the hidden power and social political ramifications of becoming King of the Pirates, the treasure that will make our dreams come true. Yo! So, for the people in the back who have no idea what One Piece is about, why are you here? Go read it! You don't need me to comment on every aspect of the series' lore and mythology, but if you must insist, this guy is Gold D. Roger, and across the entire world he's referred to as the Pirate King, an unsanctioned title given to only one person who achieved infamy around the oceans. The world government was successful, at least in the newspaper, in capturing the pirate captain, and held his execution on a platform overlooking citizens and even future pirate warlords with one final death confession.
俺の財宝が今日から喋るな欲しけりゃくれてやる探せこの世の全てをそこに置いてきた
The One Piece is real and is out there on the Grand Line, a stretch of ocean that only the hardiest and most ruthless brigands can ever hope to conquer. Factions have been established, a marine corps in constant pursuit to hold them back, and the world's powers shaken in turmoil, all because of a treasure that no one knows truly exists. And that's what this crackhead is gonna do. He's gathered a band of pirates, and ever since sailing out of the boonies, he's been on a wild voyage to find that legendary treasure and become the king of all them buccaneers and criminals. So now that we've established the hook of the series, what does being Pirate King actually do? Well, first off, it's basically nothing. It's an epithet, a nickname given out by the world government, which is an actual world government, a singular political system with executive, legislative, and judicial control over the entire world's functions. It has its law enforcement, the so-called Marines, who are seemingly upholding justice, and government spies and agents under Cypherpol. The history of it is shrouded in mystery, yet it's common knowledge that it was born from a consolidation of 19 dynasties of old world monarchs into a single tyrannical government that would then fill the world's empty thrones with new families ascending them. These kings would then funnel back their land's resources to the world government through tributes, making many of the kings more like middle managers with crowns on their heads. Those who don't pay are not granted protection, and those are places that pirates and bandits typically can ransack without much resistance. Heck, even the language has been globalized to speak just one, which is why whenever the main cast of Strats go to a place unaccustomed to world government rule, their currency, and especially their language, is clearly their own. That is normally how things went for hundreds of years, but when you throw in a brigand who discovers one of the biggest kept secrets of the government, it even gets a moniker that seems to be an ironic paper bomb against your ideals, it throws the entire pyramid scheme out of whack. A pirate king might not mean much, but if a common citizen can earn a title regardless of birthright or claim, then we need to legitimize other forms of power. The world government needed to control the seas, and how they went by it was in counterbalancing a bridge between them and the pirates who were beginning to rival them in terms of military power. In comes the privateers, otherwise known in One Piece as the Seven Warlords of the Sea. Pirates sanctioned by the government to take on the might of other pirate warlords who would then be referred to as the Yonko. This political alignment was necessary as the Yonko were starting to land grab various regions as their domains, rivaling that of what the global government has been doing. Heck, some of these Yonko were not even considering keeping the title of captain anymore, like how Big Mom kept being referred to as a queen, or Kaido as a governor general. Too many rulers can delegitimize beliefs that were thought to be dyed in the wool. Yet what does the public consider right when citizens start to devalue the so-called titles? They would have the same standing as just some kid playing pretend, naming themselves King of the Kingdom of Make-Believe or something like that. It's pretty much the War of Seven Kings in Game of Thrones, or the historical, probably mythologized War of Three Kingdoms in China. When everyone wants to be the ruler, names and titles really don't mean anything unless someone sits on top. It's exactly the thing that fashionably Pink Flamingo Boy monologues during the climactic war between the Navy and the Whitebeard pirates.
族が悪、海軍が正義、そんなものはいくらでも塗り替えられてきた。平和を知らねえガキどもと戦争を知らねえガキどもとの価値観は違う。頂点に立つ者が善悪を塗り替える。今この場所こそ中立だ。正義は勝つって。そりゃそうだろう。勝者だけが正義だ。
Military might is something that's a constant phrase spoken throughout One Piece. It is something uttered by many who see themselves as kings of their own regions. Captain Morgan is a marine captain who ruled over the island government with an iron axe, executing anyone who dared to go against his military order. Dude was even erecting a giant rock-solid statue of himself, so yeah, something only dictators would just do on their own. Don Krieg was dubbed ruler of the East Blue by many, including himself, and formed an armada to pillage and raid the seas as a so-called warlord until he got spanked by a real one. Speaking of warlords, Crocodile aimed to take over the kingdom of Alabasta and become the new monarch of the region. He had the nickname of King of the Desert, which citizens cheered on as he kept his act up, while searching for a weapon down below the country that can bolster his strength. And then you have Kaido and Big Mom, who use their monstrous strength and fear-mongering to rule over the lands while assigning their connections as tax collectors to maintain their power. Big Mom through lies and manipulation, whereas Kaido uses power and intimidation. From small batches of fishes to the biggest fish of all, literal frickin' dragons, it seems that Tears for Fears put it best. Now, if we can make a count of how many times Luffy comes in to trounce dictatorship or monarchy, it would be a pretty big number. In East Blue, we had Captain Morgan, Buggy the Clown, Don Krieg, although Mihawk did most of the spanking, and Arlong the Fishman. It continues in the Grand Line with Tyrant Wapple and Crocodile up in the Sky Island against a despotic overlord named Eneru, and Under the Sea against Horty Jones. And ever since entering the New World, the second half of the Grand Line, he has dismantled Caesar Clown's Coney Island, Doflamingo's reign over the people of Dressrosa, Big Mom's Whole Cake Island, and recently, Kaido's entire war economy on the coasts of Wano. Luffy has done far more to liberate society's corrupt political atmospheres than Joe Budden has at Middle Eastern conflicts. Many of these villains not only act as one-to-one parallels with our main hero, but also in how they seem to use their elected or stolen power to their advantage. Even the foes I left out are also prone to their own selfish wants in opposition to Luffy, like Captain Kuro, who wished to secure a fortune from a sick noble by killing her and the village she lives in, or Gecko Moria, whose desire to be Pirate King wants to be achieved without any effort on his part. Heck, even someone like Foxy the Silver Fox, who is essentially a gacha gamer when it comes to collecting new crewmates. The aspirations and desires of many antagonists are very much against the beliefs and ruminations that Luffy looks at. That's not to say Luffy is some pragmatic, thought-provoking liberator. Like I said, this motherfucker is a loose cannon. If you say don't go there, Luffy will go there. Crackhead energy indeed. But going back to the bad guys, do you know why they feel the need to attain power through any means? It's generally to overcompensate their insecurities and fears against a much more terrifying power. The reason Kuro went ahead with his dastardly 401k plan was because of being inadequate to piracy and fighting to rectify what he saw as a mishap in his life goals by killing his way into nobility.
だからもらうんですよ、その平穏を。そしてあなたの財産。
Crocodile was dealt a pretty bad hand as a rookie, so he sulked into the shadows and let his schemes and plots manifest a comfortable position that can fill the hole in his former aspirations. Many of these villains want the same kind of notoriety and privilege that others take for granted. The only one who actually attained this kind of dreamlike status was Doflamingo, and that's partly because of his heritage. One good example could be with the character of Blue Jam during Luffy and Ace's backstory. He was promised nobility among the upper class of the Goa Kingdom if he helped burn down the homeless population that lived outside the city gates. But obviously, the promise was never kept, and he and his crew were left to burn alive along with the other so-called trash.
あいつらは己を特別な人間だと思ってやがる。その他の人間はゴミとしか見てねえ。
Blue Jam is an insignificant ruffian among other characters, but is just one of several examples as to why many pirates in One Piece are so focused on the aristocracy. Many of them come from very impoverished scenarios, something Oda likes to illustrate when it comes to designing their younger selves, where some of them are dirty and wearing rags. When you come from nothing, there is a drive to become something, even if it means getting exactly what you want through pillaging or murder. Yet without pirates or underworld activities, the government wouldn't have a scapegoat to redirect their military force upon and keep up the illusion of a just world. Such as the case with the Marines, protectors of the sea, defending the innocent, and the 1%'s premier hit squad. In the series, there have been 3 locations that oversee criminal justice across the various seas. There is the judicial island of Enies Lobby, where criminals walk through what's essentially a kangaroo court, and secret intelligence concocts against rule breakers and citizens alike. Then there is Impel Down, a prison industrial complex rife with human rights abuse, and treats the prisoners behind bars as inhumane torture subjects. Yet the biggest is Navy headquarters. Marines, Navy, whatever they're called in different localizations, they are the largest military force on the open waters. They keep the peace, have giant ships fitted with the best technology, and have their hands in every factor of day-to-day life. They are the enforcers for justice, and behind that motto, they are resilient in their dedication to doing what's believed to be for the good of everyone. That includes, but not limited to, intimidation, taxation, bribery, racketeering, torture, harassment, crimes against humanity, mass extermination campaigns,
and one moving violation.
It's a police state, and these guys have overstepped their power numerous times, and despite claims of a few bad apples facing immediate punishment, many more are still wearing those marine caps. For every Morgan who gets arrested for his abuse of power, a Nezumi or a Rattel are still around taking bribes and taking shots at the elderly for good measure. Even though there are good souls who believe in the work they do, the unfortunate part of any system with power is that it was built by individuals who only sought to keep themselves protected from outside interference. I wish we could have more folks like Kobe or Vice Admiral Garp who value the lives of citizens and would commit to upholding peace. But when your fleet admiral is this guy, hot-tempered and a psychotic conservative who does his job too effectively, you'll be hard-pressed to find defenders in this system. This is the guy who leads the Marines, someone who is ruthless in this mission and who would even bomb a ship full of innocent civilians just because he's that thorough.
やるんなら徹底的にだ。万が一、あの船に学者が一人でも潜んでいたら、今回の犠牲の全てが無駄になる。悪は可能性から根絶やしにせねばならん。
Now, law enforcement has always been a hot-button issue brought up in general society, especially when it comes to their overuse of power. In the world of One Piece, it is presented as a sense of justice. For instance, you got your boilerpoint moderates who are hesitant to take meaningful charge, extremists that go completely overboard in administrating their own, and finally, you got the progressives who wish to truly better society, not through war, but by peace talks and negotiations. Yeah, that last brand of justice is a rarity, and will more than likely get you killed in this world. The thing about enforcement is that, much like our modern day, it was established to protect property held by the elites. The kings that pay the tolls set forth by the world government will have full support to do whatever they want, and the nobles can go about their days without fear being sought after by the police system for things like exploitation. When the Kingdom of Goa tried to burn the poor population, they weren't punished, nor when it got a sequel from King Bakori. So if the citizens are valued as people worth protecting, oh, what do you think? It's the rich and powerful! It always is! You can't have a fantasy story without commenting on the fact that we should really just eat the rich. Yet this hole goes very deep. And at the other end of it is the mouth of a vicious dragon. The noble population of One Piece is vile and ignorant to notions of humanity and equality. One moment that always sticks to mind for me is when Hachi, a fishman, is shot during a commotion at a public auction for slave owners, and the nobles start to prattle about his very nature. By the way, this is taking place inside the venue called the Human Auction House.
撃たれてよかったわ。近づいて何か病気でも移されたら大変だもの。
直立歩行できようが、所詮脳は魚だろ。
Racism against fishmen and merfolk are very apparent, and it's been well documented since their very introduction at Arlong Park. In fact, the park designed by Arlong captures in likeness the same park visitors to Sabaody would go to, and fishmen children would see from afar. While they aren't the only race persecuted by the human population, they are the most valued, with mermaids going for extremely high prices by traffickers, and usually sold to folks like these guys as decorations.
お前の水槽にはピラニアが飼ってあるんだろう。
追いかけっこさせて遊ぶんだい。インドは世界一速いんだい。
So in comes the Celestial Dragons, the ancestors of the families that established the world government, and ones that have been getting worse over the generations. Most likely because of some sort of inbreeding going on, because look at some of these These guys are immune from most laws set forth by the government and can say/do whatever they so desire. They can own slaves that ride like palanquin, force the masses to bow down whenever they walk by, and even go as far as to kill in plain sight any who dare talk back to them.
ああ、1番から5番の妻はもう飽きたから下地面に戻すぞい。
かしこまりました。
Think of the worst thing in your head, these guys probably made a game out of it. And don't you even dare think about hitting them back, because if you do, the strongest of the Marine Corps will run you down like a dog. They are the most privileged class in all of One Piece, and as cartoonish as their designs are, they are repulsive in their lack of humanity. Remember when I said the kings of One Piece felt like middle managers? Well, that's where a lot of the people's tax money goes to, and why many countries go hungry because of natural resource depletion. And when you can't make up the difference, you're deemed an enemy of the state, and will even be handpicked by the dragons for one of their more infamous party pleasures, the hunting party, where everyone is a target regardless of status, gender, or age. They have unlimited funds, food storage, opulent estates, and their own court of knights to protect them. Their stake in the rules of the world is quantifiably massive, and is built on blood and divine right. And like a tree, These roots are deep and spread far across. Oda is very well known for hiding the tiniest details behind the scenes, and one example would have to be with Sky Island. Yes, the arc your friend clearly skipped because he just wanted to get to Water 7. Bully him harder for missing this arc! Okay, don't really, I want to emphasize that you should not do that. But still, you skip Sky Island? Shandora was a vibrant society that is well known for its golden city. But when it was blasted into the sky, it landed on a sky island named Skypiea, and the local god sought to claim this land as his own. After many battles, the Skypieans settled on the island and kicked the local population out, resulting in a 400-year war that was caused only by a lord's own selfish want. It harkens to our own world's deep-rooted history, with displacing populations for instances that seemingly relay a phrase first put out by journalist John Lewis O'Sullivan, and that is manifest destiny. The idea that North America was a god-given right for settlers to persecute and displace the local population for their own benefits, more prominently, the indigenous population. The gods of Skypiea aren't really gods, but are instead a common phrase used in place of a ruler. You say that title goes to someone like, I don't know, as egotistical and maniacal as Eneru, who yields a terrible combination. One who truly believes themselves to be a god, and believes he can do whatever he wants while entertaining his twisted pleasures with cruel death games. Yeah, the parallels, they run really deep.
人にとって死は最大の恐怖。だから人は地に顔をうずめ、神に慈悲を請うのだ。仕方のないこと、生物は恐怖の前にひれ伏すようにできている。
But unlike Eneru, the Celestial Dragons have a much more powerful tool at their disposal. Because Rome wasn't built in a day, and the best way to get people onto your plan is good old propaganda. Nico Robin, the woman everyone dreams about. She's cool, she's gorgeous. She can break your back with her hands, and only true men want that in their lives. She's one of my favorite characters, and ever since her induction into the Straw Hats, the story of One Piece has never been the same since. Sure, you've had fun adventures and brief conflicts that highlight elements that would define the series for decades to come, but when our lady-in-waiting came on board with our love of books and cowboy hats, it was like a whole new chapter was unlocked for our adventure. I personally love learning about history, all the way back to when I was a kid and had books I'd sign out of my local library that had a historical backdrop. It's kind of cool to have a character almost be an exact version of me, and be just as excited to see her explore ruins and uncover mysteries surrounding lost and ancient societies. However, as much as she wants to uncover everything about the old world, the world itself, well, it has other plans. They are very keen to keep the past hidden, especially ones that don't look good on them. This leads us to one of the most pivotal moments in One Piece's long history, and that is the burning of the Tree of Knowledge on the island of Ohara. The archaeologists, including Nico Robin, were vivid explorers who wanted to learn about the different cultures, societies, and languages that encompass the oceans. Yet, because of the nature of their work and the discoveries surrounding a certain void century, the archaeologists were targeted by the government for unlawful misconduct and sentenced to death via a buster call, the highest level of militarized extermination. Robin was fortunate in her escape, yet as her innocence burned away, the government was adamant in pursuing her, so they put out a bounty on the 8-year-old girl that falsified her actions and made her a public enemy to the world. This event clearly says a lot about how the government wishes to tell history, and that is through international censorship. And this can be seen in how they publish the news stories. Let us not forget the government never truly captured the King of the Pirates. He just gave himself up due to his failing health. But the Marines were sure to cover that up with a rally of victory instead. Since the Marines are the good guys, it just makes sense that they would be revered as heroes.
おいみんなこんな奴の言うこと聞くことはねえぞこいつは海兵なんだ
何か問題でも
いいんだそうだいいんだ普通海兵が味方で俺たちの方が悪者だよな
After the events of Alabasta and the fall of Crocodile's underground criminal empire, Smoker was written as the esteemed liberator of Alabasta, while omitting the fact that the Straw Hats saved the entire kingdom with the aid of their crown princess. What about the time Spandam accidentally activated the buster call in Ennis Lobby? The government clearly wasn't going to admit they up and blew their own base up, on top of failing to stop the Straw Hats on their retrieval of Robin. The only time the Straw Hats' good deeds were properly displayed with little to no government interference, it was at the command of an admiral who had this rare thing called, a morality in the high ranks, and broadcasted the Dressrosa disaster in detail.
あっしゃ、嘘で英雄にされるのはごめんだ。海軍本部の信頼と威厳の問題なんじゃ。潰れて困る面なら懐にでもしまっときなさいよ。不備を認めたくらいで地に落ちる信頼などもともとねえも同じだ。
Propaganda and political blackouts are par for the course in the world government's operations. Even their comic books follow the government's script, with its most popular being Sora, Warrior of the Sea. It's a comic about a seagull-themed superhero battling an evil organization called Germa 66, with the aid of his trusty robot companion and a seagull. His moniker is a combination of the Marine and World Government logo, and the comic itself is very much a reference to old American comics like Captain America, where the proxy is placed in the country's colors to spread the message to fight the good fight and get some moral evils. And then let some of these guys into your organization, a la Project Paperclip. And I'm not kidding, Germa is not a cartoon villain made to sell newspapers, but instead a kingdom with protections from the government, who have a lifelong goal of conquering the northern seas with eugenics technology and super soldiers. You can't get any more totalitarian than that. The world government does everything in its power to limit freedom of expression, and in their efforts to scuff out the truth, allows for forces outside their control to form and play a role in dismantling their regime. Whether that be from racist policies, environmental catastrophes, human trafficking, or instituting slavery behind closed doors, the ones who can control what happens in the world are the ones who pay the largest quantities of gold. And there will be folks who want that shit to stop. Nico Robin's dream of discovering the true history of the One Piece world is the biggest threat to the government by far, and they have moved literal heaven and earth to eradicate her existence. Many would always assume her to be someone not worth living, that her dangerous knowledge can bring the world to destruction. Even morally good characters like Iceberg from Water 7 fall into this plot because of how effective the lies can be on citizens.
歴史を知りたいというただの興味が世界を滅ぼす結果を招くなら、今お前はここで死ぬべきだ、ニコロビ。オハラの悪魔たちの運命を目の当たりにしてまだ歴史を追いかけてえのか。
あなたがオハラの何を知ってるのよ。
The scary nature of propaganda is that whether you are knowledgeable or not, you can fall for the simplest of tall tales. We have seen in history how those in positions of authority will try and dictate how narrative is driven. And I think we're seeing it right now with the genocide of Palestinians, where many newspapers and articles are having to play safe in how they document incidents, and how many independent reporters have been killed, trying to uncover the truth of what's going on. For when the truth comes out, the best way to silence it permanently is to erase its existence. And that is something that is truly the scariest part of this twisted system. Especially when you got a nuclear option from right under the feet of the Holy Land. Egghead, an island of creation and unlimited possibilities for unlocking the human potential, all performed by one man with a very big brain. Dr. Vegapunk is a world-famous scientist, a genius of his time who has developed technology that looks to better society, unlimited food supply, a robust and efficient energy source, and cyborgs designed to serve and protect. However, this material of this nature needs funding, and the ones who hand out the check is unfortunately the world government. Womp womp. Against his morality, he sided with the government to design weapons and armaments meant for military combat, with his most dangerous being the pacifistas. These cybernetically enhanced humans are equipped with the latest technology and are programmed to subdue or exterminate enemy hostiles or criminals. Yet these robots are inferior when it comes to the one thing more destructive, and that is the power of one's dream.
エネルギーは感じろ。ここにもそこにも至る所に。これを目に見える力に変換できれば戦争の大きな火種を一つ世界から消せる。科学はいつか必ずそこへ到達できる。
Dreams play a role in One Piece's story. The main characters are all traveling together for their own specific goals, like Nami and her dream of charting the world's oceans, or Chopper discovering a cure for all diseases. Yet, have you noticed how big these dreams feel in the grand scheme? By all means, they are individualistic and personal. Being the best at swordsmanship won't shift tectonic plates after all, although looking at my man's body, he can certainly do that. What about, though, the former strongest man in the world? He probably wanted to conquer the sea, you might think. But no, Daddy Newgate dreamed of just having a family. And that just goes to show that the most just and realist figures in the One Piece verse are those who value personal goals instead of malicious enrichment. Let's go back to Inaru and what his dream was. To go to the moon. But how he went to accomplish that was anything but personal. It was a cover for an elaborate extermination plan to wipe out what he saw was unnatural in the skies.
私は神として自然の摂理をそう守るだけのことそうだ全ての人間をこの空から引きずり下ろしてやる
Big Mom's dream was to have a tea party with all the races that can look eye to eye with her. The error is, though, was that she was maniacal in her operations and was overall distracted by her other selfish desires to even consider the well-being of her family, her subjects, or people in general. And Kaido? Oh, Kaido is the most violent. A society they wished to create where the strong made the rules and where no one could buy their way out of it. He wanted war. And obviously, no one is as powerful as Kaido. So his volatility caused massive amounts of suffering across the seas, especially so on the island of Wano.
貴族として生まれただけの平和ボケした権力者どもを戦場へ引きずり下ろせそれが平等と自由だ戦争だけが人間の価値を決める
Now, I am drawing a lot of comparisons to many characters that are very dangerous with their aspirations. Now, why is then Vegapunk included with them? Of course, Vegapunk wouldn't be that selfish. I mean, that's part of the reason he split himself into 6 different personas. It was necessary for keeping himself in check. However, his so-called satellites aren't totally subservient to his commands, and all have their own wills that contrast to his. Especially the selfish ones. And it really should have been no surprise that in his subconscious, there was an inner thought of being part of high society. The Celestial Dragon Society. Like with York, his manifested greed.
Dr. Vegapunk はこの世界に一人でいいよね
Bringing us to the Mother Flame, his greatest accomplishment with an abundance of potential to benefit mankind, but instead used to power a weapon capable of wiping out civil dissonance. The greater one desires, the greater power is needed to make it happen, and the ramifications can be dire, especially for those who can't compete.
一時代をひっくり返すほどの軍事力がかかってるんだそのお前を奪い去ろうとするバカどもより確実に葬り去るためならばたとえ兵士が何千人死のうとも栄えある未来のための仕方のねえ犠牲と言える
Vegapunk was also very clear in warning the One Piece world about the devastating aftershocks of his discoveries, leading to him having to broadcast that the world they knew is slowly sinking due to humanity's lust for denialism. Something that we can see in our efforts in the real world when it comes to climate change, with countries being too relaxed in their planet's future as poor nations and humans are being driven out by rising seawaters. It's also no shock that Vegapunk is a caricature of Albert Einstein, and his arc draws connections to Oppenheimer and the Manhattan Project's Los Alamos laboratory incident. A simple scientist who became consumed by his achievement and resulted in the entire world entering into an age of uncertainty and chaos. Lines were drawn, and the ones who had the highest authority controlled objects that can destroy the world. But you know what won't destroy the world? Becoming the Pirate King. So now we come back full circle to the Pirate King discussion. The soft power of the Pirate King is widespread, and even after the last one passed away, his words were large and spread faster than any newspaper article can print. It was a message, a challenge to the citizens and dreamers to go and live out life to the fullest. Now, that doesn't make him a saint, nor was he as villainous as the articles projected him to be. He was a pirate who was rowdy, selfish, eccentric, and the life of a party. Gold D. Roger was not seeking fame or fortune. He just thought he could escape the burden of civility by living out his boyhood ambitions.
ロジャーは世間から海賊王と呼ばれるようになった。何もずっと海賊王だったわけじゃない。何事も派手にやらかすことが大好きな男でね。宴もそう、戦いもそう。己の先のない未来にも一計を案じ、楽しんでいるようにも見えた。
So I think it's very important to hammer in how Oda has this idea to blindside many of his readers with how his main character acts in the face of extreme peril with goofy exaggerations. A boy with a childlike imagination is about as odd and impractical as his rubber powers. It goes against all reasoning, which is appropriate seeing that his abilities allow him to literally throw logic out the window, much like a cartoon. Something youthful and mature, it is probably the most powerful thing of all. It's a youthful revolt, going against a system that predicates order and stability that will stoop to various degrees of indifference and malice to keep things under wraps. Luffy's band of dreamers and make-believers all follow in the pursuit of what will make them happy overall. Luffy's motivations are extremely self-driven, which is why he's willing to fend off or defend folks who have given him food. Even Rayleigh, who when he asked Luffy this question of figuring out the boy's true intentions, had an unexpected but very relieved reply.
支配なんかしねえよ。この海で一番自由なやつが海賊王だ。
Can we assume that Oda's interest in politics is how he was able to craft a story that looks into the strengths and weaknesses of class warfare? The reflective fight against chasing the dream you've wanted. I mean, dude's got a Che Guevara picture in the studio, and one of his characters is a literal caricature of the man himself. Who's to say he has a copy of the Communist Manifesto hanging around his living room? Then again, Oda's own home is a cavalcade of a boy's paradise. If you ever check out videos surrounding his headquarters, you can see how it is a pure view into the man's interests and passion for the whimsical and the hyperbolic. One Piece is very much the lifeblood of Ichiro Oda as a mangaka, and he always states that to folks joining his circle to pretty much put their own life on this manga. And so, whenever I think about the ultimate goal of the series, it also goes back to what Oda desires as well, to be free to do what he loves. The constant quotas, executive meddling, making constant appearances on Japanese TV shows. He might be a workaholic, but he likes to keep to himself and do his own things. And while at points he has to take breaks just to keep himself from burning out, at least he's his own boss. The Pirate King is merely a title in this story, an invisible crown for those who can believe hard enough to let it exist. You see tons of characters tout about some hidden potential underneath it all, like it's a tangible piece of property, or a treasure chest full of doubloons. The One Piece's actual form is a well-kept secret, and has been driving folks crazy for years, and that cheeky little manga author has always been pretty tight-lipped about it.
宝がどこにあるかなんて聞きたくねえ。宝があるかないかだって聞きたくねえ。何もわかんねえけど、みんなそうやって命がけで海へ出てんだよ。ここでおっさんから何か教えてもらうんなら、俺は海賊をやめる。
It's exactly why the Pirate King moniker isn't exactly as earth-shattering as being a Yonko or the world government. Since it lacks tangibility, it will not harm you. It will not impose great powers that can be misused. That's why there are people like in Mocktown that were fully against its existence or anything else fantastical. Instead, it's an idea presumably birthed from the minds of some child wishing for it to be true. Keep this in mind that wherever Luffy goes, a child is always in tow. The reasoning can be logical. Young readers want to see themselves hanging out with their goofy hero. Yet, why in the story of One Piece? Because it makes them feel like they can affect the world around them. The impressions of children are very unique and can also shape them into the people they will eventually become. How Otohime from Fishman Island protected a mortal enemy, a celestial dragon, because she saw that children were present, leading to a deeper revelation of how someone like Cody Jones was an aftermath of a society born from hatred.
辛いでしょうけど、その人間たちへの怒りを、憎しみを子供たちに植え付けないで。 彼らはこれから出会い考えるのですから。
Or how a little girl named Tama and her power to shift the loyalties of animals to her side could be the significant turning point of the raid on Onigashima. And in the latest arc, Bonnie's power is centered around her own beliefs and how they can shift her future into what she can think it will be. Nothing is more chaotic and unpredictable than childlike optimism. I mean, when I was a kid, I actually thought that I could change my school into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Academy, and actually went to the faculty one day and told them straight up with my little kid brain to pack it up and go because I'm the guy in charge. They obviously laughed at me. Well, guess what, guys? Who's got the fun to make his dream come true? Who is laughing now, suckers? Actually, I don't have that, and this was all just a bit to hide my embarrassment. So yeah, maybe I'm opening the idea that children have an important role in the One Piece's very existence. And I wouldn't even let go of the hypothesis that they had something to do with making those poneglyphs scattered across the globe. However, like any other theory YouTuber, I can't exactly prove it. But it's just fun to predict, which is the main fixture of One Piece. It's a goofy manga. Sure, you can have stories that integrate mature and edgy artwork, whereas One Piece is Looney Tunes. Snails are telephones. There's a walking, talking skeleton. A raccoon dog. There's a doctor. So with all of that said, we can fully grasp what being Pirate King is all about. It's a personal achievement to be your best self, and take on the world's judgment to be the freest person on the seas. Much like a child playing pretend with all his friends in a public playground. I don't have to explain too hard this very poor notion set forth by many people that politics ruins stories. You can certainly draw allusions and metaphors that correlate with the overall message creators have in regards to the media we consume, but if it's simply because a woman is taking more screen time than a man, or some character has a darker pigment in contrast to their white counterpart, I'll advise you to just stick to comment spam and take a course on literacy in general, or just get out of the house and talk with a woman. Will One Piece lead to a grand revolution and change in our generation? No, it will not. This is One Piece, not the Bible. Because it's better than the Bible, but I digress. The thing about politics and storytelling is that it's just one piece of the puzzle in how artists look at the world. We can see it in our paintings, our plays, and hell, even our children's books. And I do believe that in a competitive market of fist clashing, blood spattering, nonsensical violence of battle shonen, One Piece is that, but so much more. It talks about how we should treat people, how to follow our dreams, and how to be charitable. It injects a sense of positivity and inclusivity for many folks who feel left out or excluded from the normal and complacent forms of human society. And while not perfect and can sometimes go too far in specific cases, it's a fantasy we can all appreciate and learn from. It makes me wonder why this series isn't as justly discussed in academics, considering how it reflects upon sociological attitudes that are happening at this moment in our lives. Albeit it's pretty on the nose, those messages, but hey, so is the general population. Of course, now that's only because me and others see it from our point of view. Others can see Oda's manga as just an adventure comic with crazy-ass fruits that can turn you into a slow human, a zipper man, whatever this thing is. So to wrap this entire video section up, One Piece's story is a political one, as well as also being a very goofy story about a boy playing out his childhood fantasy that just so happens to make the world a whole lot better. Thanks very much for watching, guys, and tell me what you think of One Piece as a whole. Got any good theories hiding about? Put them down in the comments. And if you're into watching more videos early on before they come out, subscribe to my Patreon. It's your bra man taking a nice, relaxing nap on a boat.